I'm out here today in Colorado testing the Garmin inReach Messenger, specifically the TracBack. So this is a real field test of how TracBack works on the Messenger. I started my test at the trailhead, so let's cut right to that and see what happened. Okay, we're out here at the Dawson Butte Ranch Open Space Trail with my dog Ranger, and this morning I am testing the Messenger, the Garmin inReach Messenger, and what I'm doing is I've just left the trailhead, if you want to know. It's right there. And I did not start tracking. All I did was turn the device on. And I want to show you what's going to happen here is when I arrow to the right, if you can see that, it's going to get to TracBack right there. Then I'm going to hit OK. And you have to hit OK to go through these screens to get to the waypoints. So here's the first one, and it says 6:35 a.m. and it says today. I want to show you real quick. It only keeps track of 24 hours of points. So if I arrow to the right one, this says yesterday, and it says 7:08 p.m. because I was testing it last night. I wanted to show you that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to walk or hike out here, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to go out about 25-30 minutes, so it lays down at least 3 tracks, 1 at the trailhead and then 2 along the way. And then I'm going to hit TracBack, and I'm going to show you exactly what happens. And then I'm going to tell you about something that happened last night that threw me off and would have sent me in the wrong direction when I was using TracBack. So stay tuned for that. Now let's get hiking and get this test going. All right, I've gone out here about a half an hour of walking or hiking, and I wanted to show you, see it says 6:58, and let's go look at the waypoints or the hidden tracks that it puts down, and let's act like we're lost. So we're going to arrow to the right till we get to TracBack, and we're going to select OK. Now once you see these messages here, this is where you have to hit OK, and you get down to where there's the points. So this is today 6:55, then it'll go 6:45, 6:35, and then yesterday. So 6:35 was when we were at the trailhead. So we're going to go to the last waypoint. All right, now we're going to select that waypoint, and it says follow path. So that's what we're going to do. It says move for heading, 305 feet. So let's just keep walking this way because I need to move for heading. I need to see where the arrow is, because right now I would have no idea where I'm at if it were dark outside. All right, see the arrow is pointing behind me. It says 329 feet. So now we're going to turn around. Now maybe harder to see because the sun is not on the window of this device. All right, so there's the arrow straight in front of us, 293 feet. But we didn't go that far past this third point, but I really want to show you what happens. So I'm going to keep the camera on as we do this. Then you'll see what it's like when you get close. You'll get an audible alert, and it'll say something like you've reached your waypoint. And then I want to tell you about what happened last night, but I want to explain what would happen, say, if you wanted to go to the next point. Because what's happening right now is the inReach Messenger puts a point down every 10 minutes, and it's as the crow flies. So it won't follow the path directly. Every 10 minutes, the arrow and the distance will point directly to the point or your last point. All right, you see that? It says arrived at start, and that waypoint was actually put down a little bit closer where Ranger is. So again, the accuracy of these devices, I would say plus or minus 20 feet. All right, so what happens now? Let me turn so you can see this. So if you want to continue tracking back, you'd hit the OK button again, and you go down to the next waypoint. It says 7 a.m. So that's the most recent waypoint, but I want to go not to 6:55, I want to go to 6:45. So you got to kind of remember the times. Now remember, all these points will disappear in 24 hours. So I select that, it says follow path. So it says 0.2 miles, move for heading, and let's just walk for a little bit to show you this. And there's the arrow, 0.23 miles away. And the same thing would happen. It would give you audible alert and visual alert that you had reached your destination. Now let's talk about what happened yesterday and some concerns I have about using the inReach Messenger for tracking back and trusting too much. All right, so what you notice is when I was at the trailhead, all I did was turn this on. I did not start tracking, just turned it on. So the Messenger lays down a hidden point every 10 minutes, and those points will disappear after 24 hours. So when you're out hiking and you get lost and you want to track back, you're going to track back to a particular point, and there's multiple points. So in one day, within 24 hours, you might have 50 points, 20 points, but you need to be able to figure out, when you started, what time of the day, because as what started out this morning, I began at the trail at about 6:35, then it later tracked down 6:45, 6:55. So as you saw, when you get out to some place and you are lost, you just arrow over, you select TracBack. Then you have to go to the point you want. Now in my case, I knew it was just 5 minutes or less before that, so I selected it. It showed me, after I started moving, it showed the arrow and the distance, and then when I got there, then it gave me an audible and a visual alert that I had arrived at that point. What would be nice, honestly, is if it automatically then went to the next next point. So if you had 10 points, it would just go from one point to another one to take you back. Now again, this is as the crow flies, so it's not going to take you around an obstacle. It might take you right through the obstacle like a river or a cliff. So after I reached that first point this morning, then I had to select the TracBack again. Then I had to go to the previous time. Again, knowing what time you're out hiking. A watch might be nice, or you can see the time here. So it wasn't the 6:45 point I wanted, it was a 6:35 point. So I ended my test there, but here's what happened last night. I went out for about 2 miles in the neighborhood and I set this and I turned this on. Again, I did not start tracking and I started walking. So it set 3 points or 4 points and I got about a mile up on this switchback. It was a road, but it was a really good test because it was almost 180-degree switchback. So I got to the top of this hill and then I tracked back. So I selected the first point and it led me right to it. Same thing as you saw here today. Then I selected the next point before that. Again, it took me right to that point. Here's the problem though, because I was in that 180-degree switchback, but it was a road, but it turned about 180. It was telling me to go way off to my left behind me because again, it's as the crow flies. It's a direct route. So I had to use common sense and go, you know, okay, I can't go that way. There's a forest. And plus I knew I followed the road. So I just followed the road back. And then when I turned and got back around the switchback, then it pointed directly at the point, but it was pointing back to my left behind me for a little while. So I got to that point and there's only one more point remaining. It was at the house. And so I selected it. And here's where the problem occurred. When I selected that point, it told me I had to go 1.3 miles behind me. Now, yes, my last point was behind me, but it was only about a quarter of a mile. But I knew I needed to go to the north-northwest. It was saying going south-southeast, 1.3 miles. Now, you may joke about this or it may be irritating and it's no big deal because you're testing it and there's no threat of life or accident or injury or increased injury. But this could be a problem when you're up in the mountains. It's snowing, it's raining, it's dark, you don't know where you're at, and all of a sudden this is saying to go the other direction. And whether there was a switchback and you truly do need to go the other direction, it's just that your trail goes this way. You know, when you don't know where you're at and this tells you to go the wrong direction, this is where, you know, you trust but verify, and I would even say don't trust. This is one point in the data that you have. So you have your mind, first of all, hopefully you have your eyesight, and then you have this device here. So this is telling you one thing. Most of the time it makes sense. You're like, okay, I got that. But then when it tells you to do something completely different, well, that's when you have to go, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. Something's wrong. So you can't trust it all the time. Just beware. You need to go out and test this device or whatever device you have and be ready to know what to do if this is giving you a bad reading. But what happened when I got about 0.15 miles away from the house, all of a sudden the arrow went to the house and then it showed the direct or the correct distance, and so it was fine. But for at least 0.15 or 0.2 miles, it was telling me to go the other direction. I got to wrap up with this though, is common sense. Now, as an engineer, when I'm doing calculations, if I'm doing something and I'm looking at, say, how much asphalt's on a road, well, I'm doing a real detailed calculation, and that's great. But you need to step back sometime and go, does this make sense? So if you look at it and say, well, I should have this much asphalt per mile, and I'm doing a 10-mile road, and all of a sudden it's telling me I've got enough asphalt for 100 miles. You look at that big picture, have something to go by. Again, common sense. Maybe you're seeing where the sun is, where it sets. Maybe, you know, you have some recollection of the trail. If you're in the middle of the night, and especially if it's snowing and raining and you're lost, it's probably best just to stay put. And if you have this, then that's where I would probably hit the SOS. If you're in a life-threatening situation and you're lost and it could get bad in a heartbeat, you may not get help till the next day, but you could communicate with people, get somebody out to your area and help you find your way out. Do not be afraid to hit this SOS if you need it. Well, that's it. It's a real detailed test of this Garmin inReach messenger and how it tracks back. I'm not real happy with the TracBack on this messenger. I like the inReach Mini 2 TracBack way better. If you want to know more about that, there's a video right here and in the description below for the Mini 2 and how much detail it gives you. I mean, it will tell you exactly where you went, going around an obstacle, a river, a cliff, because man, in the middle of the night out here in Colorado, you might have a cliff 20 feet away, and if there's snow and dark and it's raining, well, you may be in trouble. So the Mini 2 is way better at TracBack. Well, thanks for joining me here on Outdoor Emergency Tech here in Colorado. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I will see you back out here in Colorado in the next video.